Hi everyone, my name is Jordan, and with Halloween right around the corner, I decided to make a spooky game. Okay, well, it's not that spooky, but there's some fun blood in it. I made it for the Devtober Game Jam, which is pretty much an excuse to get a game out there. There's no theme, limitation, or requirements of any kind, other than going at your own pace and just doing a little bit at a time. That was definitely something I wanted to work on, so I got to work making something fun. A long time ago, I wondered what it would be like to make a game that used really fast bullets, instead of your typical bullet hell slow bullets that collide with the player. Think the difference between your shotgun in Doom and the enemy's fireballs. It turns out it's both not that hard, but also very hard if you don't know how to do it. This is my zombie game I made a while back. You have to collect ammo to shoot the zombies and grab the key, which lets you go to the next level and do it all over again. It's built like a puzzle game, but there's no real complexity to it. It's almost impossible to fail at the level unless you touch a zombie and die. My code for the shooting was impossible to read, and there are obviously a few bugs with the system. This was one of my very first attempts though at pixel art, and I'm proud of it, though there's definitely a lot to be critiqued. But today I want to talk about my new game, so I'm going to walk you through the process of how that was made. I started off with the art for the character since I knew that the laser sight had to line up with the end of his gun. I colored his arms and legs differently to make the animations more obvious. The character is heavily inspired by Leon from Resident Evil 4, as are many of the parts of the game, which you will soon find out. After putting the character in the game, I spent the next few hours getting the code working for my laser sight gun. There's no actual bullets in the game, and that's fundamental to how the game works. You might think it's easy to make fast bullets. Just increase the speed of the bullets and let them collide like any other bullet hell game. I created this little demo to show you why that doesn't work. The red triangle represents the enemy, and I'm trying to shoot my yellow bullets at him. The game runs at 60 frames per second, meaning that when there is an animation, it draws that 60 times every second with small changes to show animation. So right now the speed of the bullet is actually how many pixels this shape moves every single frame. You can see there's no problem right now because the space that is being traveled every frame by the bullet can get to the enemy just fine. But what happens if you speed this up? More space is traveled every frame by the bullet to create a fast animation. You can see that as the speed of the bullet increases, small little gaps start to appear between where the bullet is being fired. It can be a little tricky to see because my screen isn't recording at 60 frames per second, but once I hit a speed of 34, the gap between the bullet frame is so large that it passes right over the enemy without colliding. That's what I discovered in my original zombie shooter that I created using fast, invisible bullets. The bullet skips completely over the enemy and doesn't register a hit. My zombie game drew a collision line from the current frame of the bullet to its previous frame and checked to see if a zombie was hit. That did work. The problem though was that if a wall was in there as well, the bullet wouldn't know if the wall was before the zombie or after the zombie. I had to do so many different checks for all the different directions and possibilities that the code ended up being horribly inefficient and a nightmare to read. The new code works much better by just drawing a collision line straight out from the character to the end of the room. If it finds a wall in that line or a zombie in that line, it runs a check to see who is closer to the player. If it's the wall, the line ends. If it's a zombie, the zombie is killed and the line ends. It's fairly simple and much easier to read. I created a left and right aim state in the player, which just mirrors all of the checks and draws a line to the left side of the room instead. The line that you see coming from the laser is just a single pixel line drawn from the character that mimics the collision line, but they aren't actually the same. I had to play around with the laser position a bit to make sure it all looked right. I also made it so the character always faces the mouse, just so that the aiming would be more intuitive. I played around with different outlines for the main character, but I ultimately settled on no outline for the main character and a solid red line for the enemies. I created a simple animation for the gun firing. Then I started playing around with a blood effect that I would eventually take to the extreme. I made a super gnarly death animation of the head exploding, inspired, of course, by Resident Evil. And then I added a fountain of blood that shoots out and covers the walls. I played around for a while with how much blood should fly out, and settled on about 100 blood particles as the right number, though I made this short demo to show you what it looks like with 1 particle, then with 100, then with 500, then with 1300, then we went all the way to 4500. And because I can't stop myself, I set the blood count at 10,000. As you can see, my PC doesn't like that very much. I had made an early castle tile, but decided to replace it with a village-like tile using Tile Setter to create all the pieces for an auto tile set. It's not perfect, but it allows me to make an auto tile set in about 5 minutes, so it's a wonderful tool for game jams and temporary art. I then worked on the music for the game. I made a whole video on how I created the main theme for this, which I've linked in the description, so I won't spend too much time on it here, but I think it is super cool. It's a song in 9/8 time, which you've been hearing in the background, that has a key change about every 15 seconds throughout most of the song. Most of my music comes from wanting to make something I've never done before, and this was no exception. I would show you the different stages of how this sounded, but I forgot I had muted my desktop audio when I recorded this, so you can only hear the later stages. I put in a 4/4 section in my 9/8 song to give it some variety, but I think I might need to go back and spice it up a little. It's a little boring right now. At this point, I had a good section of the game complete and decided to make a final level where you can go to town killing the cultist and just see all the juicy, bloody explosions. I'm quite proud of the later puzzles, though it has been said that the early ones don't really have any difficulty to them at all. I had this idea for the lighting system where you could have unique shadows on all the letters of the game's title. The way the lighting system is set up, I'm not sure I'd be able to do it with in-game font. So what I ended up doing was creating each letter in the main title as its own sprite and giving it a precise collision mask. Then I set up the variable list to change the image index of the letter, so even though all of these look like S's when I put them in the level, once the game starts they will be magically converted to the letter of my choosing. I added some ladders to make the title a bit more unique to the game, and I think they look nice. I decided I wanted a real ending to the game and was inspired again by Resident Evil 4. I wanted you to be able to ride away on a jet ski with your girlfriend or whatever. Creating a pixel art jet ski terrified me, but I have to say the fact that you can actually tell what it is a huge accomplishment for me. The way they drive away makes me smile. I added in a level select screen and tweaked the lighting a little bit so it was all darker, and everything was basically finished. I uploaded everything to itch.io and created a web port, which of course made all the lighting not work. So if you play the web port, you still get all of the taxing lighting requirements on your PC, but none of the beauty. I considered not uploading one at all, but I think I would rather have more people play a less pretty version of the game, because if it's not fun while it's ugly, it's not actually fun. Also, my art isn't going to win any awards anytime soon, though I would welcome any for the jet ski. Well, that's my game Chutes and Ladders. You can play it right now for free on my itch page. If you like this, you can check out some of my other devlogs too. My name is Jordan, and I love to make games, music, and anything creative really. If I find something cool or interesting, I make a video about it. If that interests you, feel free to like and subscribe. If not, I appreciate you watching my video anyway. Happy Halloween everyone, and be safe.